Hello and welcome to the Behind the Dish podcast of the Burnt Orange Sports Network. Hi, my name is Henry Hipschman alongside my co-host Grabiel Silva, where we will bring you discussions on Texas baseball every Monday. How you doing, Grabiel?
I'm doing good, Henry, and just like the baseball team, everybody's doing great, it feels like.
It's finally that time of year. Baseball season has started. Texas just went through their first three-game stretch in the Shriners Children College Showdown out in Arlington, Texas, which I thought was part of Dallas, but I was corrected last week or our last show, and it was a pretty good weekend for the Longhorns. One loss against Louisville to open things off, but then a 10-0 win over Ole Miss in 7 innings, and then a 14-8 win over Oklahoma State in 9 innings. What did you think of this past weekend, Graybill?
So the first game, obviously, I was really hyped. Jared Spencer went out there 5 and 2/3 innings, and he really put it to Louisville on Friday. So I thought, the Max Weiner pitching staff was already showing its strengths, and then it got to the bullpen and it fell apart. And they lost that first game on Friday, 4-3. So that was kind of like maybe some issues from the past seasons have reared its head back into this season. I was kind of concerned with Friday's offense as well. Only a two-run home run by Will Gasparino in the second inning and nothing throughout the rest of the game up until an Adrian Rodriguez homer in the 10th. But I think my question marks for the offense were answered the next two games.
I mean, more specifically, Jared Spencer had an amazing outing though. His first game, like let's dive into that a little bit. 5 innings pitched, 5.2 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts. He retired 11 of his first 14 batters. I think he opened the game with a hit by pitch and then was kind of rolling from there. So, what'd you like from the transfer?
Well, he's a left-handed pitcher. That's what I like. We got to get some lefties out there, and Coach Schloss really made it a point of emphasis with all three starters this weekend. The Sunday starter didn't go as far as planned, but both Jared Spencer and Luke Harrison went deep into the game as lefties, and that's something you kind of want to look for. People aren't accustomed to hitting off of left-handed pitchers, especially when they have nasty stuff like Jared Spencer. But he was getting up there with his fastball. I think I was seeing mid 90s, high 90s, and that's just impossible to hit, especially when it's coming from the left side and with a delivery like him. People were calling him like Josh Hader on the mound as a starter. So it's untouchable if he's throwing like that.
Yeah, no, our pitching looked pretty solid, and I kind of want to touch on. I feel like we got a little bit of everything this weekend. We got the loss in Louisville. The bats weren't really working, even though Spencer was great on the mound. Then we gave up a couple of runs late, which is bound to happen eventually. Someone's got to score. And then we had a pretty dominant performance against Ole Miss, or Texas had a pretty dominant performance against Ole Miss. That it was just all offense, all pitching. Everything was good in that game. That's kind of, I think, I mean, that'll be their best performance until obviously their next amazing outing. But I'd say pretty much flawless all around for that one. And then OK State, I don't think the score tells a story as much with that one because Oklahoma State kind of shot themselves in the foot a lot in that game. And they gave up, I think it was a pair of errors in that fifth inning that really got the scoring started and had that long 2-out Texas rally. So, what did you kind of like though, pitching wise? For the rest of the weekend and these kind of taste of all these kinds of different games.
Well, in that Saturday game against Ole Miss, Luke Harrison went six in the third, and Tommy Burns finished it out with 2/3 of an inning. It only went seven because they run ruled him. The kid had six strikeouts, only allowed two hits. Ole Miss only had two hits the whole game. So I got to give props to Luke Harrison for that performance that he had on Saturday. Especially, even coming into the season, we didn't know who was going to be the weekend guys. You know what I mean? Like last year it was Ace Whitehead, and there is no Ace Whitehead right now. So it was like trying to dive into who's going to be this pitching staff. And right now it looks like both Jared Spencer and Luke Harrison solidified themselves as the Friday and Saturday guys. Um, and then going to Sunday, heading to Sunday, Cade Bing had the start, but he didn't start off that good. He gave up two runs. Um, and he was quickly pulled right after that. And then after that, it was just a whole lot of whoever can get out of the bullpen. And they did what they needed to do. Max Grubbs, Drew Redrick, Cody Howard, Will Mercer. Andre Duplantier. I mean, all those guys stepped up and they stepped in for basically a bullpen game on Sunday. I mean, it's not good to be living off of bullpen games, especially in the SEC, but they were able to piece together a solid win on Sunday thanks to the offense dropping 14 runs.
I wanted to ask you about Ruger Riojas because we got to look at him. He had 2 innings pitched, 2 and 2/3 innings pitched. He gave up a pair of runs, and I don't know if that was the start he was looking for. I believe he has a lot of anticipation, coming out of this bullpen. So a lot of great starts on the mound this weekend, but out of that bullpen, we got guys like Riojas who struggled. What can, no, well, just really that first game, but what do you think kind of moving forward from there can we see from Riojas to really recover?
Well, he did exactly what he needed to do up until the last out of the game. I mean, Texas was winning for 26 outs Friday, and he couldn't get that last one, and uh, Louisville was able to send it to extras. But I mean, he showed potential. It's his first start here at Texas, or his first outing here at Texas, I mean, and he showed potential. He was mowing through the lineup, but then in that ninth inning, I guess he was probably pushed a little bit too far past his limit. And I guess Coach Schloss was trying to get him to finish the game, and he just wasn't able to. But I liked what I saw from him. It looked really, um, like he had some potential out there on the mound on Friday. Again, it's only his first outing. He's gonna learn from it. Even Coach Schloss said after the loss on Friday that how they're like the loss isn't going to define the season for this team. You know what I mean? But how they're going to respond to the loss on Friday is going to how define the team for the rest of the season. And what did they do? They run ruled Ole Miss on Saturday, and they dropped 14 against Oklahoma State on Sunday. And now they're going to play a bottom tier Big 12 team in Houston, and then Dartmouth this next weekend. So I think this Texas team is going to have a chance to really break out, and hopefully they can win 4 in a row heading into the following week.
Yeah, I just want to be careful of that OK State game a little bit because they were really good offensively. They had some really good hits. Uh, Baloo had a RBI double. He had a home run in the first inning. Gasparino popped off. He had a 2-run home run. But there were a couple miscues by the Cowboys that gave them that game a bit because they still gave up 8 runs. And I'm just talking about in like that fifth inning, there was a ball that fell outside of the right in front of the warning track that should have been caught. That wasn't. There was, I believe, Miss Grounder. I just know the second error, but that helped a lot. So I think while Ole Miss, that was a really solid offensive performance. They did have a little help in that OK State game, but we got to see a lot of good stuff from Baloo and really the whole team this whole weekend, which I thought was really, really good because Baloo's coming off of illness. They didn't really get into the specifics of it too much um, when detailing it, but Baloo had an illness. He comes out for their first trio games, not at home, pops off. Rodriguez just got SEC Freshman of the Week honors. He popped off or co SEC Freshman of the Week. Will Gasparino looked really solid, having some home runs. And literally in that OSU game, like even though they had the errors, like everyone was taking a piece. Baloo, Gasparino, Ryan Galvan had a 2-run single. Kimball Schusler had a double, and then Jalen Flores had a walk to cap off the inning. But I like just how everyone got a taste, so that was really cool to see. I think it was a pretty good weekend though overall for Texas and how they got things started because right now they look pretty solid as a team, especially a bunch of guys who or not a bunch of guys, but a couple guys who haven't really played together yet. That chemistry is kind of clicking.
Yeah, and going back to, your worries about a game like Sunday, in years prior, Texas would have blown that game probably with the way the bullpen is or used to be. Um, it just feels like if one team's having a comedy of errors, it feels like Texas would also have it at the same time as well. And they'd end up in a dogfight and then losing 15 to 14 at the end. But they held it down. They did exactly what they needed to do. There was a little bit of like a bullpen issues, but they were already up 14 to 5, I believe, and it ended 14 to 8 by then. So if it was kind of like they were already ahead. It felt like the game was kind of out of reach. Oklahoma State threatened in the eighth inning, but they weren't able to come all the way back. Texas's bullpen was able to lock it down. And I think it's it's a small victory, especially with how the years prior have gone for this Texas team, where they kind of just blow leads. You know what I mean? No lead was safe back then. Now it's like, well, here was a game against a team that I mean, Oklahoma State was the preseason Big 12 favorites to win the conference. So that's a fine baseball team over there. And Texas was able to drop 14 on them and keep them at bay from trying to surmount any type of comeback in the late innings.
Yeah, but like I just don't want this team to have to rely on their offense to pull them out of games because we have really great pitching outings like they did Friday, and then the offense just isn't firing, and then we sell that game and seven strikeouts go to waste, five innings go to waste. I don't want that to become a theme, and that's kind of what I'm taking away from this weekend. Besides the fact that we have a lot of talent, besides the fact that they played well in a lot of instances, it's also we won that game. We won the Ole Miss game because of solid batting and solid pitching. We didn't have great pitching in the OSU game, but we pulled that out with offense. And then we had fantastic pitching in the Louisville game, but that one we dropped because that one Texas dropped um because they couldn't get it going in the extra innings. So that's what I'm a little worried about going down the line.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. It was really a weekend of all sorts, a pitching masterclass on Friday, but no offense really. And of course, a bullpen kind of a letdown on Friday. And then Saturday was probably as perfect as the game as you can get, a 10-run rule against an SEC opponent with a starter going almost a complete game because it was only 7 innings. And on Sunday you had an offensive outburst, but also a bullpen game. So you know that Texas can win those type of games uh, on a Saturday and on a Sunday, and you know that they are probably a few clicks away from sweeping that whole weekend. And right now we're looking at a 3-0. We could be looking at a 3-0 Texas team heading into a relatively easier week against Houston and Dartmouth and Washington or UIW next Tuesday as well. So, uh, not a super easy schedule, but those are relatively easy uh upcoming 5 games for the Horns, who could be looking at trying to go 7-1 heading into the next weekend classic that they're going to be in Vegas.
Who are you thinking comes out of this weekend MVP?
Obviously it's going to be Max Blue, right? He hit 571, I believe it was, mashed a couple homers. Uh
Yeah, 571.
yeah, 571, mashed a couple homers. Had a ton of doubles. I mean, the thing was that he started off slow on Friday and he still hit 571 for the weekend, right? So uh he's obviously in contention for, I believe, the Golden Spikes. He's going to be an All-American, All SEC. He's in contention for that, but he's probably looking for a little bit more, especially after the way last season ended. I'm sure he's looking forward to trying to be one of the contributors for this team, alongside some of these younger guys and the other older guys that you mentioned, like Jalen Flores and Will Gasparino and guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Jalen Flores, he didn't have a bad weekend, but what we're used to is kind of quiet. He was 4 for 13, had an RBI, had a walk, stole a pair of bases though. He had two steals. Everyone else on the team had one or zero. So it wasn't a super explosive weekend, but we didn't have to rely on him, which I think says more to the depth of the Longhorns right now.
Yeah, I mean, especially like last year, it always felt like everything was kind of, when is Jalen Flores coming back up to the plate? When is Jalen Flores going to get this hit for us to, put us ahead? But now you had guys like Ethan Mendoza and Adrian Rodriguez. Kimball Schuster did good this weekend as well. Um, you know, guys that have always been kind of not in the, I wouldn't say in the background, but kind of like behind a little bit,
Mm.
compared to a guy like Jalen Flores or like a Jared Thomas from last year, or these guys are different and they're stepping up and they're taking over the role to be those guys for the next couple of years as well.
Yeah, no, I mean it would be nice to not have to only rely on Blue and Flores every game. And by the way, you were talking about Blue's stat line for the weekend. He was 8 for 14, two home runs, five RBIs. So he just had an amazing outing, or he had an amazing weekend. And he was already a preseason All-American. You're right. He's gonna be an All-American. Um, at the end of this season, he keeps playing the way he's playing. So I just think it looked pretty good as a team. I also liked how the young guys looked. Obviously, Adrian Rodriguez did great. He's sporting the second highest average on the team, even if it is only 3 games with 429. He had 5 runs, 6 hits. He was 6 for 14, 3 RBIs, and 2 home runs, which ties the most on the team right now. So that's cool seeing a young guy like that. I know Cole Chamberlain, I think, came in right over the weekend. I couldn't catch all of every game, but I know Cole Chamberlain came in at one point. And I think he scored a run, but yeah, he had 1 run. So I think it's cool seeing these young guys kind of step in too.
Yeah, and speaking of Adrian Rodriguez, the kid went 4 for 6 on Sunday,
Yeah.
right? He can hit the ball and he started to figure it out. He had a homer, of course, his first in his first game on Friday, but then and and then he had a double on Saturday, and then he just went off on Sunday, 4 for 6. So I mean, like you mentioned, like it's really interesting that a lot of these younger kids are trying to step up and trying to make names for themselves. I mean, even a kid like Adrian Rodriguez, he's only a freshman. Those are his first college at bats, like that were meaningful. You know what I mean? And the kid went 4 for 6 on a Sunday against a team that's projected to win the Big 12. And it, it it's interesting because the kid still has 3 more years here. He's draft eligible in 2027. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna be a name to look out for, and right now he's already proven it. And I mean, it's just it's nice to see that the distribution throughout the lineup, even the lineup in general, kind of Coach Schloss, like Kimball Schuster was leading off. I was kind of surprised by that. I didn't think a guy like Kimball Schuster would be leading off, but he is a guy that can find a ways on base. So he is a good leadoff hitter to get on base. And then he kind of mixed and matched throughout the weekend, toyed with Flores and Baloo 3-4. Tommy Farmer played left a couple of games.
I mean, Schuessler did finish last year with a 343 average. So I don't hate that as a guy to lead off. I think that's a solid guy you can get on base. I wouldn't also hate if Flores led off as well. He batted two most of the weekend, I think. Yeah, and then but Schuessler, I think going off his numbers last year, I mean, 44 runs, he had 14 doubles. That's a good guy to have on base, and he's still on there when Max Blue comes in. He'll be at third base. That's an easy guy to just bring in. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty solid choice. It's either going to be him or it's going to be a guy like Flores. But yeah, and then let's talk about kind of defensively. Like, what did you like seeing how the team performed defensively other than the pitching? Adrian Rodriguez, his first couple outings in college baseball as a third baseman. What'd you like?
Well, I didn't really get to see much of the games this weekend because, it was unfortunately on Flow Sports. I don't have a subscription, so I just kind of kept up as much as I could. But looking through the stats, Jalen Flores had 2 errors. I hope that doesn't become a trend. We saw that last year in the College Station Regional where he had a couple of key errors at the end of the game that kind of helped end Texas' season. You know what I mean? Going through the next couple of games, it looks like Adrian Rodriguez had an error Saturday, and then Ethan Mendoza had an error on Sunday. But you know, 4 errors throughout the weekend. I mean, Oklahoma State had 3 errors on Sunday by themselves. You know what I mean?
Oklahoma
So
State gave away that game on errors. I mean, Texas was the better team. I think they were going to win it anyways, but it
yeah,
was pretty neck and neck until a pair of errors kind of just messed up their whole flow, and Texas really just got firing. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm looking at the stats too, and just this is pretty solid defensively, just in the field and limiting errors like that. This is gonna be a team that just has to limit mistakes because it's mistakes that lost them. I know it's mistakes that always lose a game. I don't think there's a lot of teams. I really don't think there's a lot of teams that are actually better than Texas. I just think it's who's going to be cleaner. And there's going to be teams that
yeah.
are better, obviously, in the SEC when they go on and play guys like Texas A&M later on in the year. But it's just going to be cleaning it up and who can really stick it out, especially in these late innings. I don't think this is going to be the first game this year, the one with Louisville that goes into extra innings. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. If the bats go cold for the Longhorns, can their pitching make up for it? Can they last in these longer games?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see if Texas is able to play clean baseball for a majority of the year because, like you said, the SEC is going to be unforgiving if you make some errors. We're hoping that Jalen Flores can clean it up for this baseball team, so that way they don't have to worry about errors from their shortstop. You know what I mean? Or errors from their third baseman, errors from their second baseman. Once they can clean those up, this team is going to look a lot better, especially as the season goes along.
Yeah, for sure. And Houston's coming up, lower end of the Big 12, like you said. This is a weekend you got to kind of take advantage of. These are the games you got to take, you know?
Yep.
And what do you want to see? Do you want to see, I mean, obviously, you want to see good everything, but against Houston and then Dartmouth, and Dartmouth should be a sweep as well. Um, do you want to see that solid? Do you want to keep seeing this solid pitching, or do you kind of want to see the bats making up for what might be lackluster off the mound?
Well, I'm going to be interested to see who's going to be starting tomorrow on Tuesday against Houston. We haven't seen a Tuesday starter yet. Last year it was really a revolving door of who's going to start in the midweek. Um, So tomorrow, I'm hoping to see a lot of offense because we don't know who's going to be on the mound for the Longhorns yet. Friday, I'm hoping to see the Jared Spencer show because if he showed up on Friday against Louisville, he should realistically have no problem playing against Dartmouth this Friday. Saturday, I'm gonna have to say the same thing for Luke Harrison. Like Friday, Saturday, I'm hoping for two pitching master classes, right? To build off of their last starts, I'm hoping to see these guys do the exact same thing the week following. Sunday, I'm gonna have to hope for offense because it seems like it might be another bullpen day, unless Coach Schloss has found a number three starter for Sunday. But this past Sunday, it didn't look like I think it was Cade Bing was the guy who started. It doesn't seem like he's gonna be uh he might not be the Sunday starter, permanent Sunday starter. So it'll be interesting to see who struts on the mound next Sunday. We know Friday and Saturday are set, Tuesday and Sunday aren't. So the days that are set, I'm hoping for good pitching and the offense does what they need to do to keep them ahead. And on Tuesday and Sunday, I'm hoping for a lot of offense while the pitching keeps the other team at bay.
Yeah, I think Saturday and Friday have been set for a couple weeks. I know that's why Jared Spencer didn't pitch in the alumni game because they wanted to get him used to that Friday rotation every week. And so that's going to be a big thing too. Who's going to be their go-to guy on Sundays or Tuesdays? And that third really reliable guy they can have. And I thought it was gonna be Ruger Riojas going into the season. It looks like he's gonna have more just a bullpen role, at least for now. But I think, like you're saying, like I think that's gonna be cool to see in the next couple of weeks who's more consistently going out there when the team doesn't have Spencer or Harrison at the helm. Um, so with that though, we were talking about Adrian Rodriguez getting SEC co-freshman of the week honors. Luke Harrison got pitcher of the week honors. And already we're seeing the Max Weiner effect. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the show, but he's coming in, he's making these guys look really good. And they were good pitchers before, but he can improve these guys to a level beyond what they were capable of before he was here. And who knows, it could be even an MLB level if he gets to work with them long enough in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Harrison was a guy who I believe was out either last year or the year before, and tonight he looked unhittable, right? Let's go to Jared Spencer. Jared Spencer was at Indiana State for a couple of years, and now he came over here and he looked unhittable as well. So you can already see that Coach Weiner effect is that you know, these pitchers are already starting to look unhittable. I'm looking forward to see if they could stay unhittable, especially against a team like Dartmouth next weekend or this weekend. So it'll be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see like how good this team is gonna look with their pitching staff. Like I mentioned earlier, there was bullpen woes. The bullpen kind of gave up some runs on Sunday, and then of course the bullpen couldn't finish it out on Friday. And we didn't really use they didn't really use the bullpen on Saturday. Thomas Burns only got two outs and the game was over.
Yeah, no, I mean Luke Harrison, but like Luke Harrison though, he'll have more bullpen, he'll have better bullpen support later on in the season. Because it's gonna suck if he has a great outing. I mean, Spencer had a great outing, and then they don't get the wins just because of a mediocre bullpen coming out there. So I think So kind of going off you're saying, like, they'll improve that bullpen as the season goes on. Also, who had a great weekend as well was Will Gasparino, who had 8 RBIs. We didn't talk about him too much and a pair of home runs. So right now the home run guys are Blue, Adrian Rodriguez, and Will Gasparino. They each have two apiece. But Gasparino came out of the weekend with 8 RBIs, and that's gonna be nice having him, who as a heavy hitter, other than Blue, to balance this batting order a little more and give them more depth.
Yeah, I mean, a guy like Will Gasper, he's only a sophomore, right? And we mentioned in our previous episodes that the guy gained 15 pounds of muscle basically over the offseason. He enjoyed going to Chick-fil-A and Chipotle throughout the offseason. So he proved it. I mean, he's batting 357 right now, 8 RBIs, like you mentioned, mashed 2 home runs. One of them was in the gap that I remember seeing, uh, especially there in Globe Live. That's a far ways away. He had a couple doubles as well, and he even had a triple. So I mean, he's fast. Plays center field. He's got to be fast. He can mash the ball. So he has a wide range, and the kids. He's only a sophomore. He's got this year and next year to keep proving how good he's going to be. For this Texas baseball team, and I mean, um, I was happy that, he was able to stay even after his senior year of high school because the kid had MLB draft potential, and he was able to not be picked too high, I guess, or picked at all. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but he ended up coming to campus and he's proved that he is a great addition for this baseball team to have arrived on campus here.
I mean, if you look at the whole outfield had a pretty good weekend. Tommy Farmer, that third outfield guy, he came out with a 250 batting average, 3 for 12, but he had a pair of RBIs, he had a pair of runs. Yeah, he didn't have a bad pair of weekends either, or he didn't have a bad weekend either, and had a good string of games. So I think it's a pretty powerful outfield they're developing out there, and they can get Farmer connecting with that ball a bit more, get his average up maybe to 270, 280 on the season. That's a great support for Blue and Gasparino, who both have well over 300 averages right now. Blue has 570 average after this weekend. Gasparino came out with a 350. So if you can get him up to a 270, 280, and just have him as that third guy on the roster who can really bring in a hit if you really need it, and Baloo and Gasparini already went through, then that's going to be great for the Longhorns going forward.
Yeah, and speaking of the outfield, it kind of did seem like they were kind of locked in. I think Easton Winfield started the first 2 games in left field, I believe it was, and then Gasparino in center and Blue and right. Unless I have those mixed up a little bit, I don't have the lineup in front of me right now. But Easton Winfield, he kind of struggled this weekend. He only had 1 hit and 7 ABs. He's hitting 143 right now. I'm pretty sure that's probably why we saw a lot more of Tommy Farmer Saturday night and into Sunday because he's hitting 250. He has 3 hits, 12 at bats, couple runs scored, couple RBIs. Um, so I think going into the season, it was kind of like it was supposed to be Winfield, Gasparino, and Baloo out there in the outfield. But now it's kind of like, well, if Winfield can't figure it out soon, it might be Tommy Farmer as the fourth outfielder, it seems like right now. So it'll be interesting to see if who's going to end up taking that left field role. If it's going to be Farmer, if it's going to be Winfield, if Winfield can get out of the slump that he started at the beginning of the season. Because I mean, we saw it last year. A guy like Nick Sanders who transferred out this year, he started off slow in the year, and to begin last year, he had 1 hit, 1 RBI, and that was to begin the season last year. And after that, he just fell off a cliff, and had to transfer out this year. So it's gonna be interesting to see if Winfield is able to not do that and not succumb to the slump and is able to retain that starting left field spot over a guy like Tommy Farmer who's trying to seize his opportunity as the time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, and they're all sophomores too. Farmer and Winfield and Gasparino. Baloo's the junior in the outfield. Will he be there after this season? Who knows? But yeah, probably not. But it'd be if they can develop all three of those guys, then next year that's a pretty experienced outfield, and then that's also a pretty powerful outfield for other teams to face in the order. We are running out of time, and I think we touched on everything we're going to touch on today. So Thank you so much, Grabiel, once again for all your insight. And that will wrap it up though for Behind the Dish for this week for the Burnt Orange Sports Network. I want to shout out Grabiel for hopping on once again. We didn't have TJ this week. He unfortunately was not feeling too well, but we expect to have him back next week. Thank you again for joining us. And we hope to see you next Monday at Behind the Dish.